So I'm very grateful to the organizers of the ACE conference for inviting me to speak to you about leadership today. It's very bold on their part because I'm not an expert on leadership. I'm not even an officially recognized leader. What I will share with you today is what I've learned about leadership through my community work, organizing volunteers for something called Closure Bridge, and how I've brought this experience into my paid work as a product manager. And I will be sharing these experiences that have challenged my thinking about what leadership is and have shown that I am a leader, even though I didn't know it at the time. So who here is an introvert? Raise your hand. So I've outed myself, I'm an introvert, and as an introvert, I never saw myself as a leader because what our culture holds up as role models for leadership are people who are really articulate, outgoing, charismatic, visionary geniuses. And how many of us really see ourselves that way? So basically, through my experiences, I will be challenging the top 3 myths I see around leadership. And I will show you at the end that it doesn't have to be a big deal to choose leadership. And I will end with a few actionable steps on how you can implement this in your daily life. So leadership is a choice, not a rank. Okay, clicker doesn't work anymore. Clicker works on my other screen. So how do I make this go forward? So technology. The presentation is here. Don't download. Cancel. So it's trying to access iTunes and making me update iTunes in the middle of my presentation. And I don't know where this display is anymore.
It's still trying to. Keynote doesn't seem to be running.
Maybe I just continue and you can figure that out. So, so basically, myth number 1 is that you need institutional backing or a title to start to lead. And basically, there are 2 different kinds of roles and 2 different kinds of skill sets. And you can have one person who occupies both roles, or you can have people who are separate people who occupy these roles. So who is this? Who reviews your work and gives you feedback on your work? Who manages a budget and can give you raises? And who fires and hires people? So this, for me, is a manager. And the key differentiator between managers and leaders for me is that it's appointed by your company or an institution. So usually you don't have any choice. Who's your manager? You show up at work and you're usually assigned one. So who's this? Okay, so who's this? Who identifies with something greater than themselves? So it could be a vision, it could be a purpose, it could be a team. Who sees something that other people don't and share it with them? And who is someone that makes people feel good about themselves? So this last point I actually just changed yesterday because before I had that leaders like people and people like the leader, but I actually think that's not true. I think it's more about making people feel good about themselves. Because in the end, people choose who inspires them. So you can have somebody say, I'm your leader, but actually it's your choice to choose who inspires you to take action and what they pull you towards. So basically, for me, it's 2 different roles, leaders versus managers. And one person could occupy both roles, so your manager could inspire you and be a leader for you, but doesn't have to be the case. And this is coming to the point when I need my slides.
I can't find your slides at all. What are you using?
Okay, they've all disappeared. All my slides have disappeared. Yes, so this is the myth number 1. Who's this? This is a manager backed by an institution. So who's this? This is a leader. And the key differentiator for me is that people choose who inspires them. And anybody who has to say that I'm your leader is probably not really a leader. So basically, as an alternative to the myth, is that you can choose yourself to lead through just wanting it and sharing your ideas and making it happen. And to illustrate how this has happened for me, I'm going to tell you about Clojure Bridge in Berlin. So Clojure is a new programming language. And what Clojure Bridge does is that we organize free 2-day programming workshops to women or to people who identify as women with little to no programming experience. And we've done this twice already in Berlin since July 2015. And each workshop has taught Clojure to 30 learners, about 20 coaches, and 6 to 8 organizers. And to me, the lasting impact of Clojure Bridge is that after these workshops, people have created study groups that meet weekly because they got so excited about learning Clojure in the workshop that they wanted to continue that. So our work still isn't finished. We still have a lot to do to increase the gender diversity in our community, and we will be doing our 3rd workshop in June. So how did this start? It started on a fear of missing out. Who knows FOMO? Anyone? Okay, so I spend a lot of time on social media, and this is a term usually referring to a social anxiety on missing out on a great event because you see other people post about it on social media. So an example is, even though Joan was tired, Joan's FOMO got the best of her and she went to the party anyways because she didn't want to miss out on what a great party that would be and seeing people's photos on Instagram of that party. So basically, before Clojure Bridge, there was something called CLJ, Art with a Heart, which is the name for a programming/artist collective. And that was Malvina, Yala, Nicola, me, and Arno. We were trying to learn Clojure by programming on Monday nights, and we made browser art and music with Clojure. And we were doing this for, I don't know, a few months when we first heard about Clojure Bridge coming to Germany for the first time. And it was going to be in Solingen. So we're in Berlin, and Solingen is on the other side of Germany. It's 107 hours by foot. So we thought about, okay, well, we could, take some days off of work, maybe make it a road trip. We were considering all the options of going. But, I got a little frustrated, and I said, kind of like a joke, well, why don't we just bring Clojure Bridge to Berlin? We could just bring it here. And to my great surprise, everybody thought this was a great idea. So what did I sign up for? And this is our first Clojure Bridge workshop. And that happened a few months after we decided to organize it. And for me, basically what I want to show is that something great came out of just a very small idea, was even kind of an offhand remark. And basically, it was something that I saw that other people didn't see. I saw, and I was thinking for a bigger purpose, a bigger team, and basically I shared it with people who were inspired by this idea, and we made it happen. I would like to have my notes. Oh, now the clicker doesn't work. I see how this is gonna work.
Maybe the clicker opens the window with focus.
Okay, so I will have to figure this out. So basically, Clojure Bridge came out of something so small as a fear. So at work, I'm not a manager of anybody, I'm a product manager. And I wanted to tell you about a colleague of mine whom I've named the Guardian, because he doesn't know I'm talking about him. And this is not a picture of him. This is a picture of a temple guardian from a Japanese temple in the 1300s. Looks quite mean, but actually what he has in his left hand is to destroy ignorance. So the guardian is somebody who works on our infrastructure production team. And the standard operating procedure for working between the product developers and the infrastructure team is to write a ticket. And so we were trying to do something totally new for the company. We were bringing an application that was hosted externally to the Amazon cloud, and this involved a DNS switch. So basically it was something new for everyone involved, and there was a story with this long comments on it, going back and forth about how to get this done. So I had this very small idea of, hey, why don't we all sit together to talk about this? Because obviously there's a lot of communication overhead and frustration, and this standard operating procedure with the story isn't getting things done. So I showed up at the Guardian's desk. He was very surprised to see a product manager, probably for the first time at his desk. And I said, do you want to come to a meeting with my product developers? And he's like, you have to ask my manager to make sure that I can come. So it was kind of lots of standard operating procedures, but I'm happy to say we got together in one room with everyone where basically we could explain what we were trying to do and they could explain their processes, and we got things done. So myth number 2, leaders have to tell others what to do down to the exact last detail. Obviously some leaders do this and this is very successful, but I want to offer an alternative. So basically what we do in Closure Bridge is that we offer people a bigger purpose and a chance to make an impact, and we let them figure out how to get there on their own. And I think that's actually why people volunteer with Closure Bridge, because they are looking for something to make an impact, to increase diversity in tech, and they can see that impact when they're coaching the learners in our workshops. So one of the biggest gifts I've gotten from my community work is something I call additive culture. And what I mean by this is something that other speakers have talked about, in terms of how we talk to each other about each other's ideas. And for me, this is one way in which you can add to someone's idea, even while challenging it. So this is a GIF I made of a South African artist who works in charcoal, and his name is William Kintrich, and how he works is that he draws something, erases it, and draws over it, and takes photos of this, and makes a stop animation film over time. So you can see what has come before adds to the entire effect. And this I contrast to right versus wrong culture, where basically your ideas are either 100% wrong, or they're 100% right. And what's really dangerous about this is that this stops conversation. So when you're wrong, maybe you get a little ashamed, and then you don't want to develop this further. And even if you're 100% right, nobody wants to add to your idea because it's 100% right. So either way, this kind of thinking stops the conversation, and I think in this case, everyone loses. Whereas in additive culture, basically what we do in Closure Bridge is that the coaches model that it's okay to not know all the answers, it's okay to be not perfect, and it's okay to make mistakes, which is normal when you're trying something new. And basically I see the advantages of additive culture is that it encourages learning through experimentation, collaboration because it builds belief and trust in your own abilities, as well as in the abilities of others to support you. And I think here what's key is that it emphasizes that not knowing is the seed of creativity. So I want to tell you about another one of my colleagues whom I've named the good citizen. And I've chosen to illustrate this with a Vermeer of a woman reading a letter. So when this person first started working with me, he was shocked that I didn't know the answers to everything. Am I really an expert? What could he really learn from me was kind of the vibe I got from him. And to me, my work with him has been trying to show that in product, actually we're solving problems that don't have any answers, no right answers. So it's part of the discovery process to figure out what the answers are. And that's actually key to the success of product development. If you think you know the right answer already, then how would this actually really fails in the marketplace usually. So myth number 3, only one person can lead and that role has no expiration date. So in most of the organizations, this is probably your org chart. This is obviously a very successful model with CEO at the top. Well, for some companies it works. So I'm not saying that this doesn't work. I think for some companies it works where you have somebody at the top, ideas waterfall down, goals waterfall down, right? And everybody's a VIP. But I want to offer an alternative where we think about people as stars in the constellation, where we can support each other and where people can step up and step down. So how we're organized at Closure Bridge is that we're a team of organizers, and basically we are all totally responsible for the success of the workshop. So that doesn't mean we all do the same tasks, it just means that we all together are fully responsible for the success of the workshop. And what's really awesome about how we've done it is that we've created things in such a way that's open source and totally transparent. And what we've actually created is a container or framework for our community work. So that way, this work can go on beyond any one person. So basically, this is a photograph from the second Closure Bridge workshop. And we have Lisa, who was a learner at our first workshop, and then she co-organized the second workshop. Francisca came in and organized the second workshop. Ellen, she is a learner for the second workshop, and she's organizing our third workshop. And Julia and Ariana, they were learners at the first workshop, and they were coaching at the second workshop. So we've created this container where people can step in and step out, because it's a community-led effort. That means people's interests and availability change over time. But to me, it really speaks to the impact and the purpose of our work, that it continues on by the community and it's not dependent on any one person to be the hero to drive it forward. So basically, the alternative to myth number 3 is to build other leaders and to create a framework so that your community or your product or your work is sustainable over time. So as an example, actually for the first Closure Bridge workshop, for which I was the spark, I was actually sick. I'm not in this picture. And basically, we've done things in such a way that the tasks I had for this workshop, other people could take over on the day of. And it was a total success, even without me. And actually, Closure Bridge and the first organizing team of Closure Bridge is heavily based on the work of another organization in Berlin called Rails Girls Berlin. And what they do is a free 2-day workshop to get women into Ruby on Rails. And basically, more than half of the organizing team of Closure Bridge, we have roots to the Ruby community in Berlin, which started about 4 or 5 years ago to be really invested in bringing diversity to the Ruby community in Berlin, and now is one of the most diverse and welcoming communities in technology there. So basically, we have as role models the organizers from this community, and they've built us to be leaders they've built us to be leaders for the Closure community. And so at work, I want to tell you about someone I'll call the diplomat. She was kind of lent out to me from the marketing department because I had to meet a deadline. So basically, we had to redesign and relaunch one of our sites to be responsive before May 1st, because Google was changing their search algorithm to rank sites that were, or to penalize sites that were not responsive. So basically, this woman, she didn't know the difference between backend or front end, Java, JavaScript, and she basically really rose up to the challenge of basically taking on this project and being able to communicate with the developers in terms of what we needed. And And I think basically my proudest moment was when she started thinking about edge cases that I was even like, no, whatever. But she really took ownership of it. And this is basically she became a star, and we could lean on each other to get this project done on time. And I'm also kind of happy to say that she decided to move from marketing to product. So here are some myths, and there's also alternatives. So you don't need institutional backing or a title to start leading. You don't have to tell others what to do down to the last detail if you can tell them a purpose and a vision, or to tell them how they could have an impact on that purpose. And it's kind of a myth that only one person can lead. You can have multiple leaders, and you can plan it in so that way this role can be taken up by others. So how can you do this for yourself? For me, a lot of this is based on communication, and these are just some ideas that have worked for me, and you can pick and choose what will work for you. So be kind. Treat everyone, even employees, like volunteers, because people aren't working just for money. And how can you be kind to everyone? You can get to know people. So I know some of this seems like really basic, but it was really a surprise for some people in my company when I said, hey, we're working together, let's go have lunch. Like, this was totally unheard of. And basically get to know people inside and outside of their work roles, right? Because I think the more comfortable you are with people, the more able you are to ask for help and to be asked for help and to speak up. Thank people. I know maybe you already do this because you're a polite professional, but sometimes, a lot of times we're thinking, oh, they're just doing their job, you know? Why should I be grateful? But I really think it builds this atmosphere where people can start to trust and believe in each other when you thank people, and you can even take it a step further. You can write it down. You can write it down, just 3 sentences, send it to them, saying exactly how they've helped and for what you're grateful in terms of their contribution. And you can even take it a step further and put it on social media or on their LinkedIn profile. And if that is overwhelming for people, you can just start with one person. 2, grow an additive mindset. And so for me, this is really key. And I think a lot of people, or some of the speakers have already talked about how to talk to people in such a way that's kind and compassionate. And I think for me here, what's key is to, instead of being judgmental and saying, no, that's wrong, to ask questions. So, how did you come to that conclusion? Have you considered from X perspective? What if you knew that this data structure actually doesn't work that way? And this, for me, has been key. Also, I ask myself, does my opinion really matter here? So sometimes I think, especially in product, we feel like we have to have an opinion on everything, but maybe it doesn't really change anything, and maybe this other person's idea is just perfect the way it is, and we just want to add something to it because we feel we should as product people. And once you have the foundation where you have the trust and the communication, share what you believe in with people you believe in, and then you can basically make it happen. And I think this is really important because, products are, the experience you have creating your product, I really think that your users can feel it. And basically, product is about meeting people and what you make with them. And I didn't wait for anybody to say, Bettina, you have the leadership hat. I claimed it just by identifying with something bigger than myself, seeing something that other people didn't, sharing it with other people, and letting them be inspired by this. So power is strength, and leadership is giving the strength to others. And you don't have to diminish yourself when you give your power away, because leaders build other leaders. And spreading leadership is like spreading ideas, because the more people who get it, the stronger you are together. So I invite you to choose leadership. You can become a star. And you can tell me if you did it on Twitter. I'm at @Bettina.